Welcome to the Rollwise Podcast, your weekly show about tabletop role-playing games and role-playing games in general, I guess. My name is Mike. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my good friend Brent
Hi, everybody.
and Jeff.
Hey, everyone.
So buckle up, and let's go ahead and talk about something different than Fabula Ultima the entire episode. That's been our last few weeks, and so we're going to mix it up a little bit today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Baldur's Gate 3. Tangential to role-playing games, but as you may guess, if you played any Baldur's Gate 3, it's quite the talk of the town right now, both in some good ways and maybe not some good ways. We're also going to talk a little bit about this game called Daggerheart. It's Darrington Press's long-form, more epic fantasy role-playing. They did a preview at Gen Con, and so there's a little bit of information that's been trickled out about it. And we'll probably talk a little bit about prologue sessions in detail, considering that's what we did on Monday as part of our live stream. So thank you, everybody that stopped by, if you did, or thank you, everybody that's watched it. I know it's not a short episode, about 2 hours long, but we plan on doing more live streams on Mondays. So if you guys want to stop by, hang out, see what we're doing, we might be playing, we might be chatting, who knows? Stop on by, say hi. So you guys ready to talk about Baldur's Gate?
Absolutely. We're ready to listen to you talking about Baldur's Gate.
Oh my fucking
God. I haven't played, so.
Well, so first of all, the Baldur's Gate 3, if you guys, do you guys remember when Baldur's Gate, the original game, came out?
I just know it was a long time ago. I don't remember when.
I didn't play the original game until much later, and I never played the whole thing.
Okay, so Baldur's Gate was one of those, I would say, like, core memories for me in terms of like computer role-playing games and everything like that. I mean, I played it back in high school, and I didn't actually have my own computer to play it. I had to play it like as much as I could at my friend's house. And so basically, like, he had a game and I had a game, and we would just like play it as much as we possibly could. It was kind of fun. I mean, it was for some reason back in those days, because you didn't have like actual plays or anything like that, you just like, you couldn't watch somebody else do it, so you just watch your friends do it. Like I don't know, did you guys ever sit around and watch your friends play video games?
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't feel weird, because, like, we played a lot of the single player role playing type games like that. I don't actually remember if the original Baldur's Gate had a multiplayer.
No, it didn't. There wasn't that many. I mean, multiplayer games like weren't that big of a thing.
Because the internet wasn't a thing, really.
Right,
It was
exactly.
a sort of, it's kind of a tiny.
It was a Nancy thing. You could do like LAN parties and stuff like that, but that's about it.
Sure. No, Mike, I remember watching people play Wizardry.
Doom. We play it. I used to watch my friends play Doom all the time, and I remember my mind being blown the first time I saw Doom.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I can't say that, and it's funny because, like, my wife doesn't understand why you watch people play video games, especially nowadays when you just watch somebody on like Twitch or something play. But I don't know, it's maybe something we just got used to, being that we've done it for so long, or just want to see the game being played, and we don't care that we're not the ones playing it. But
yeah.
But needless to say, I can't speak to the multiplayer component of Baldur's Gate 3, but Baldur's Gate 3 is recently come out of its early access. Now, this is the one thing that I thought was weird, because I think that it was in early access for like 2 years, and I purchased the Steam version of it in early access a long time ago, and I tried to play it, but they were so limited. I got to the point where it was like so limited in the number of choices that I could make in terms of character class and all those kind of things, that I just kind of like said, you know what? I don't want to ruin my experience of the game by playing it premature. So I'm just going to wait until it fully releases and everything like that. And it just came out at the beginning of this month, August 3rd. And I'm not going to lie, like, it's been pretty well received. People have given it some really high ratings. IGN gave it a 10 out of 10. PC Gamer gave it a 97%. OpenCritic gave it a 96%. And so, I mean, in terms of just like showering the love on the game and everything like that, people have definitely been giving it a lot of love. Now, I don't know if other games I've seen other games rated that high really recently. I don't even know if like Mass Effect or anything like that is rated, like those kind of traditional RPG games.
There's some other 10s. I don't think. What did Destiny? What was Destiny's rating, Jeff? Do you know? I think it was up there.
I don't think
Destiny,
it was
like the original Destiny.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I never got into Destiny. Did you guys play a lot of that?
I did.
Jeff played a
played,
lot. I played some.
I probably got 3,000 or 4,000 hours into Destiny before I stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, he played it a little.
I mean, is there what? I thought Destiny was kind of like a looter shooter or something like that, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. But they it was live service, so they had a lot of weekly events and stuff. And I was in a group, so like we would do multiple raids a week. And I was running for a long time. I was running 3 characters just on my account.
Oh wow, that sounds like quite a bit. Did you get all the loot and did you shoot all the enemies?
I got almost all of it. Yeah, no, I wasn't ever like the best guy at like PvP and stuff, but I was definitely better by the time I stopped. I just, we had a guy that was in our clan that passed away, and it kind of things kind of snowballed from there. Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I get you, man. It's sometimes the game, like the attraction, is more the social component than the actual strength of the game.
The social component's pretty huge.
Yeah,
and if it doesn't start that way, it becomes a thing. Like,
so yeah,
right.
Because I have to say, like, there's some games that are the social side of it is the reason I played, and once the social side is gone, you start scrutinizing the actual game itself. You're like, I can't
as good as I thought.
I can't dig a bunch of hours into this game for what it's worth as it is right now.
Yeah, and sometimes you just hit the fill line. Like it's like I love this, and it was there, and now it's
done.
Not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I did in your as for your nostalgia trip, I did play Eye of the Beholder all the way through the original game.
Like
and
the one that came in like those big kind of black with golden boxes and stuff.
Yep, nice. And you moved frame by frame through the 2-dimensional dungeon. Yes.
Yeah.
I also beat both of the Dark Sun games. So
yeah, well, I had a feeling that you would play those ones, but they were pretty merciless. I remember dying a lot in those games because it just felt like I died to really random shit too. Like, I don't know, they were hard games and they were kind of confusing.
They were.
So, all right, so let's talk about Baldur's Gate, the game that just came out at the beginning of the month. A few things. I mean, as in terms of my opinion of Baldur's Gate, like I know we had said that we've kind of like cut ties a little bit with Hasbro, D&D, and all of those kind of things, but I'll make an exception for Baldur's Gate because the people Larian Studios, they did a really good job putting this game together. And I have to say that like D&D, for all its, for its longevity, all the additions that they have, it's still not a perfect game. And just like when you played Al Cat's versions of the Pathfinder Adventure Pass that they put out Kingmaker and they put out Wrath of the Righteous or something like that. I mean, you still see how the tabletop RPG mechanics kind of get in the way of fun gameplay because there is a little bit of incompatibility that exists between them. But I have to say, like, the way that they put Baldur's Gate 3 together, I am absolutely amazed at how good it is. I play it more for the story than the technical challenge. So anybody that's on the tactician levels, good for you, man. I can't figure that shit out. But I'm really impressed. First of all, the story is pretty fun. You have a lot of variety. And in fact, I'm really barely out of Act 1. I played the beginning of Act 1 so many times, just trying out different class, race combinations and stuff like that. And it seems as though there's something for everyone. So if you want to play like, and I had so much fun with this. If you want to play a barbarian, Brent, because I know you like the barbarian type characters, you can play the barbarian. You can jump around as a berserker, and you get like enraged throw. And you basically are hucking enemies at enemies. It is a really hilarious time. I do not know why I enjoyed that so much. I got bored of it after a little bit, but it was just a hilarious way to start the game. I was like, oh, I'll play a barbarian because you kind of start on that. And I was like, oh, I'll build it up. And I was like, oh, throw. And then I took one goblin and I threw it at another goblin and it killed him. And I was like, oh,
this is amazing.
Yeah, like all of a sudden my fun meter just ramped up way higher than it should have been. And then, I mean, the game is massive. Like I'm just, like I said, I just got through Act 1, but it's like so big that it is just so much stuff in it. There's a website. I believe the website is like how long does it take to play to beat the game? And like right now, Baldur's Gate is like averaging about 75 hours. And I think that's because people aren't speed running the game, obviously, but they are like just taking their time with it. But 75 hours is a pretty good investment for a game. Like, way more than I expected. But yeah, no, I like the game quite a bit. And I don't know. Do you guys, if you guys are both console players, so you guys aren't really into the modding scene and all that kind of stuff. But if you get, for those PC players and all that kind of stuff that are out there for modding and they like to do that, if you haven't been to Nexus Mods, if you want to change your game up and how that is, because sometimes the people that do the modding community actually improve games. I believe there was an experience where like somebody modded the game like Grand Theft Auto or something like that and made it a better game than the original devs did. Then the devs got mad at them. So, I mean, those kind of things exist out there. But what I have to say is that, first of all, Baldur's Gate does allow nudity and all that stuff as part of the game. So if you want to run around buck naked the entire game, you can. Or if you want to run buck naked and have your armor effects, you can mod it so that you can run around buck naked the entire game and still have the effects of wearing armor. But I have to say, the one thing that I thought was kind of funny was that there for a while there, especially at the beginning when this was coming out, there seemed to be a lot of things that adjusted body shapes and sizes. There was an incredible fascination with penises in this modding community, and I was really surprised by that.
There is in every game. I mean, like, it was a big thing in Cyberpunk 2022.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or Cyberpunk. Is it Cyberpunk 2020 or is it Cyberpunk 77?
2077.
Yeah, 2077. The Cyberpunk game, like, people were obsessed with the fact that you could make, like, because you could, like, if you turned it on, you got to pick your Johnson size, your character's Johnson size. Mm-hmm. And like, I remember there was a lot of memes where you could make it so big that it would just hang out of your pants the entire time you were playing the game.
It's clipping.
It would clip through the pants, and people were just really enamored of that.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know why they put it in the game.
Yeah. Why do you put that in the game?
I think it's to be edgy, I think is the reason. But like,
and I'm not trying to say that I don't appreciate. You guys know me. I'm the dick and fart joke guy. So, it seems like it would be up, but why would you put that in the game?
Right? Yeah. Like I don't know, but yeah.
Sorry.
Who knows?
And they had, but in the sense of a gender equality, they had jiggle physics for both the wang and the boobs, which you don't see very often in games.
That's true. That's true. And I have to say that while the mesh on the bodies is pretty good, and obviously the game allows nude romance and it very much follows the what was that, Mass Effect and other game styles that allow for some sort of character romance to happen between them. But when I started looking at the mods and I was like, what's popular? And then like, what is popular all time? You know, like the most popular mod is not nudity, but it's on the first page. Like, enhanced nudity, get better nude figures.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But you know what? You play the game how you want to play, and the fact that they allowed modding to happen is awesome. I mean, I think that I always like it when the devs open up the gates so that you can actually mod it and do things and all that kind of stuff, because that allows people to add custom armor sets, different gameplay styles. One of the things that I've always found funny is that sometimes people think that like the hardest mode, tactician mode, isn't hard enough, so they need something harder. And so they'll be like Tactician Plus and shit like that. So it's pretty cool.
Modding communities are really sometimes what keeps a game alive. Mm-hmm. I know that's one of the things that like Borderlands and stuff like that. Like modding communities are one of the things that kept those games going for so long.
I almost played Skyrim. I almost played Skyrim on PC just because of some of the mods.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I still know a few friends of mine who try to get the perfect Skyrim experience through mods.
Oh, really? I don't actually know what that would entail, but I do have to say there was a YouTuber that I watched a long time ago, Donkey or something like that. He had a Skyrim video, and he had just modded it to the max, and like the dragons were Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh yeah, I watched some of that. Yeah, dragons were Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious, because then it was just like the choo-choo, flying around the sky.
I know there's a mod where like you're walking around Skyrim and the game and the guards just occasionally explode for no reason.
Well, that's about how useful the guards are in Skyrim.
Yeah, they just occasionally just like, and it's not like they explode, but they explode in like confetti or like money or something like that. It's just like boom, and like just it rains.
It just turned into money.
Yeah, and like my friends that I were playing with, they're like, it's funny the first time, And then it starts to get annoying.
Yeah, some of that stuff gets annoying pretty quick. Like, I mean, you think a mod would be fun, and then you're like, I have to do this for 75 hours. Oh, geez, I made a mistake. And truth be told, like, I'm sure that there's going to be some mods out there that are pretty good at everyone's probably going to play with, and there's some mods that not everyone's going to play with. Not everyone wants to see giant swinging.
Giants swinging. That's
yeah. They don't want to see giant swinging stuff.
I bet that's a Skyrim mod. Just saying.
Probably is.
God, I hope not. But you're probably right.
But one of the things that's so kind of getting off the mods and stuff like that. But it was actually really impressive. Like, just I can't state enough on how massive the game feels right now. I feel, and there doesn't seem to, they are trying not to enforce an order so much as that they give you like a playground to play with. But I don't know how to say it. It's not like it's a sandbox where, like you just kind of like you go this way and then everything is how it's supposed to be. It's kind of like those games where they just say, okay, well, here's your playground. We have dotted this playground with a bunch of different scenarios that happen, and however many of the optional ones you want to do, that's fine. But we're not going to necessarily tell you they exist, and we're not going to tell you how to do them. Do you want to? And this isn't a spoiler, but do you want to side with the druids? Or do you want to side with another group? And if you side with that other group, do you kill this group? Do you like what you know what I'm saying? They give you a ton of ways to play through it. So you actually, I mean, you can have the kind of experience you want. But I do think that it does kind of, like, in my opinion, at least, it kind of gears towards the good guy playthrough. But I'm going to, one of my next playthrough I'm going to do on this is they actually created a character that you can start off at the very beginning with an edgelordy name called the Dark Urge. That's the name of the character. And you can rename the character, I believe. But basically the Dark Urge.
You're just going to call him Urgy?
Urgy. Yeah, whatever you want to call him. But the point of the character is that, like, those people where you just want to do like the stuff that you want to be the bad guy sometimes, and you just want to play that evil playthrough. I can't say that everybody has that experience. But in this case, by playing the Dark Urge, you unlock certain evil kind of story components.
I have never played a game where I wanted to kill all the cops in the entire game. Like some people I know.
I wouldn't say wanted to kill all of them. and I would say that is I don't. Just because I like playing DSX a little different than everybody else doesn't mean anything. But moving on.
There's definitely a shortage of cops in Deus Ex now.
Yeah. Well, they didn't like my stealth playthrough. So, but the idea about the Dark Urge, I thought it was kind of an odd idea to have, but kind of a weirdly funny one, where you just have this character that has, can you overcome the dark urges, or do you succumb and become just, I guess, evil incarnate? I don't know. It's just a weird seeming character that I was going to give a try.
We should talk about that sometime in evil campaigns for games, like people that want to play evil campaigns. We should talk about.
Do people still do that? Because I can't. The last time I thought about doing a fully evil campaign, I want to say I was still in my 20s.
My favorite story about that is I was going to run a game, a Warhammer 40K game, and they had just come out with an expansion to Dark Heresy that was Chaos Space Marines, and like you could play Chaos Space Marines. And like I picked up the book and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then I just heard in my head we all want to play the Slaanesh Chaos Space Marine game. And like I couldn't fit my head around that, because for everybody to know, the Slaanesh is the chaos, lust, and excess god, sort of Hellraiser-y, lot of Hellraiser-y sex stuff. And I was just like, nah, I don't think I could do that.
There's a lot of fading to black in this game.
Yeah, okay. The best case scenario is that they all want to worship the demon Khorne, which is just the one that kills everybody. Like, that's the best case scenario for that game.
I don't know. Nurgle could be kind of fun. I mean, in my opinion, like,
there would be a lot of gross body horror that would come up in that game. A lot.
Depending on who you're playing with, there may be some people that are a little too into that.
Yeah.
As a total aside, Brent, I saw a video today on somebody that got to play Space Marine 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's no release date yet, but they said at least the level that they got to play was a lot of fun.
Space Marine 1 was amazing, so I am that is one game I am really excited about.
Well, guardedly optimistic then.
They did an excellent job in Space Marine 1 of making you feel like a Space Marine. Like you had weight, and as you were just killing hordes of orcs, it was brilliant.
And and now it's the Tyranids.
Yeah. Well, another horde army that you can kill many of.
Yeah, just get a lot of blood on screen.
Yeah.
I have to say though, Warhammer is the one property where I feel like their games have been so hit or miss that it's
there's a lot of terrible ones.
There's so many bad games in that universe, and there's like the good games that really get it right. Like when I played Dawn of War for the first time, I was like, this is a good
first
RTS.
One.
Yeah, the first Dawn of War was really, really good. By the time the third one came out, I think they lost.
Oh no, the third one was terrible. The third one was terrible.
Yeah. Maybe I say lost their magic. You say terrible.
First time I saw so this is what broke me in Dawn of War 3, and it's such a petty thing. But the first time I saw a Space Marine in full Terminator armor do a front flip and slam his hammer down, I was like, this isn't the right game for me.
You missed something. Tactical Dreadnought Harlequin armor.
You missed something.
But I think the first game did a really good job, and I think
it did.
And I mean, as I posted for you guys in the chat, that new Rogue Trader game by Owlcat, I'm really excited about because I played Owlcat's other, CRPGs, and they are awesome. Like I have lots of time in both Pathfinder and Wrath of the Righteous.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad Bolt Gun, the like 2D Doom clone. That's a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people enjoyed that. But yeah, Games Workshop is so stingy with like giving out their property to like people to write their role-playing game, but they will just whore that shit out to any like mobile game producer or tiny game producer that's just like, hey, we'll give you money if we can put a Space Marine in this game. And they're like, how much money? And they're like, I don't know, some. And they're like, sure. And they've just made just some of the shittiest like video games, just horrible.
And some of them are just like, and I just don't even know how you can play them. Like it's like Tacticus or something like that. I believe that's one of the mobile games. It's just like you just you move your character to a spot and they do some damage and you go, okay, I've collected heroes.
Yeah,
what am I supposed to do? Yeah, so those are, I don't know. Like I said, they've had some pretty good hits. They've had some good hits, but they've had a lot of misses in my opinion, and I've been depressed about it. So
I agree. 100%.
So needless to say, if anybody's looking for a seal of approval from at least one of us on Baldur's Gate 3, I say play it. I say go for it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you hate it, and we have a difference of opinion. And
the worst thing that happens is you give Hasbro your money, but we'll forgive you.
Okay, yeah, that's true. But probably get.
You don't think Hasbro just got the licensing fee and then that was it? Maybe they get a portion. I don't know. I don't know how those deals are just constructed.
Much like the movie, the more people that buy it, the more that they're gonna be able to make money off of it.
Well, at least if anything, people are going to play Baldur's Gate and be like, D&D is really good, and they're going to play D&D and they'll be like, I like Baldur's Gate 3 better.
Well, that's probably true. I like video games, not role-playing games.
Yeah, I like both, but they're not super similar.
Yeah, no, they're really different.
It is funny because like Baldur, the DM in Baldur's Gate 3 would be a bad DM by all means. Like it'd just be a terrible DM. But at the same time, if you like video games, it doesn't necessarily translate.
They're different. They're very, very, very different.
Everything I've heard is that it's a lot of fun. So
yeah. So and obviously,
if it was out on console, if it was on the Xbox, I probably would have bought it. But alas,
play it on PlayStation 5
instead.
I'm
not buying a PlayStation 5. I've spent $500 on one console. That was enough. Thank you, sir.
And I think it's still hard to get a PlayStation 5. I think you have to sell a kidney to get a PlayStation 5 still.
The Xboxes are much better. I was assuming the PlayStations were too, but
I think a PlayStation 5 is still relatively difficult to get your hands on.
Oh,
Walmart supposedly got them $3.99.
Maybe not.
See, look, already cheaper and more available than you gave the impression of, Jeff. Hop 2.
Well, it's $500 from PlayStation, so I don't know how Walmart's selling for $100 less, but
they're not. They're lying to get people into the building, and then they.
We don't have that version.
Yeah, we don't have that one.
Version.
Well, like one of the earlier PlayStations, I got.
That's for the pink one. We don't have that one. This is the white one, and it's $100 more.
Well, so like it was a while before I actually picked up a PlayStation 3 because
it's the digital edition is $400. The one with the disc drive is $500. I knew that. The digital only, you can only download games. So
okay.
Yeah. You can't buy physical copies.
I'm sure GameStop loves that.
Does anybody buy physical copies of games anymore anyways?
Some every once in a while.
There's some.
I don't buy many that way, but like my kids do. They like the physical copies.
I'm way too much of an impulse purchase person on video games.
It's too easy to just go download now.
Exactly. It's like, hey, I want this game. I'm just gonna do it now before my common sense kicks in, and I realize I don't have to send this $50, $60, and then I'm downloading it, so we're good.
Yeah, well, we can talk about Brent's pile of shame later, but I assure you, Steam.
I'm not. So this is another funny thing about me is I'm not ashamed of anything.
Brent's pile of games, then my pile of shame, because I keep on buying more games, even though I definitely don't need to buy more games.
I don't buy a lot. I don't buy a lot of video games.
I have a feeling that Mike's got like 3 5-terabyte hard drives because everything that comes free on Steam for 1 month, Mike's like, download it.
I have a lot of friends that do that. Like I have a
free game. I'm going to take it.
Well, it was free on Steam.
It was free on Steam. I'll get to it eventually.
It was 75% off on Steam. I was like, you spent $400 on discounted games. How is that a thing?
It's a good deal, Brent. It's a good deal.
It's a good deal. They were all 75% off. Are you going to?
Does anybody want to guess my library size on Steam?
No. It's got to.
I don't consider myself to have that many. I don't know, but maybe I do. What is an average library?
I don't know. I don't buy that many games anymore, so.
Well, and I try not to, but I usually on summer sales and stuff like that, I'll pick up a few games, like maybe 3 to 5 to 8.
Sure.
And so I have 263 games on my Steam library right now.
That seems like a lot. 263 seems like a lot.
Yeah. And the worst part is I don't pay very much. I don't pay full price for very many games. So every one of those games was purchased at like bargain basement prices.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's everybody there at Steam, right? Like very few people.
Well, yeah, no, there's some really great deals on Steam, and there are some really great independent games that don't cost very much to begin with, and if they discount them, it's even better.
So this is a funny tangent, completely separate. I can tell this is going to be a wandery episode. Sorry, folks, if you wanted to hear role-playing game stuff. But I did watch. I watched a streamer. He makes YouTube videos, and I think he's a streamer too. But I watched one where it's, can I beat Elden Ring and not have to pay for it? Because apparently Steam has a policy that if you keep a game for less than like an hour or two, you can return it. It's 2 hours. Yeah. So he beat Elden Ring in 2 hours and then got a refund.
There was actually a game. I'm surprised that happened with Elden Ring, but I do remember there was another game on Steam that had that same problem, but the game itself was only like an hour and a half long. And so people were like, well, that was too short. Refund.
I 100% would be pissed if I bought a game and it only took me an hour to beat. 100% pissed. Like, the thing with Elden Ring is if you're good at the game, you can beat it pretty quick because you just have to hit the main.
Yeah.
Like, I think
you have to beat the main guys. You don't do any of the side stuff,
you do like 2 remembrance bosses, and then you can hit up the main city.
But how would you be that good going into Elden Ring that you could do that? Because like
this guy's played it before, obviously.
Oh, so he basically played it with a timer from Steam and then returned it and is like,
exactly.
I didn't like the game. Too easy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is something like speedrunners and people like that do. It wasn't
speedrunners.
It was more of a funny thing than anything, but it was pretty hilarious, really, that he was like, let's see if I can do this and then get my money back.
I think my favorite part is not necessarily how quickly they play it, but for whatever reason, I don't think I've seen this with any other game, but like the Dark Souls type games, people are beating those games on the weirdest shit. Like, I beat Dark Souls on a banana, or I beat Dark Souls using a drum kit.
That's because they're fucking hard. Like, that's because like if you could use a Rock Band guitar to beat Elden Ring, you are an insane level of player because that's bonkers.
Yeah. But like I've never seen that with other games, like where people have just like basically flexed and they're like, oh yeah, well you beat it using the standard controller or keyboard. Well, have you beat it using a keyboard, like a keyboard,
Yeah,
a
it's
synthesizer?
it's just so hard. It's ridiculous. Like Elden Ring is, well, all of the Dark Souls games are just difficult. Like one of the things a friend of mine said is like an Elden Ring game is a game where no matter how high level you are, you're never safe in the game. Like a guy can kill you who's a first level guy can kill you. Like you're just never safe.
Because he pokes you off the edge.
And in any fight, you're missing one dodge or two dodges away from dying.
Yeah. So
yeah. All right. So let's move on to Daggerheart, away from our tangents too much. So Daggerheart, you guys ready to talk about it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, Daggerheart is the new fantasy campaign style RPG from Darrington Press, which I believe is Critical Role old in Darrington Press, or
yes,
are they just like
that's
affiliated?
my understanding.
Critical Role.
I'll double check it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they own.
I'm pretty sure, and minor correction, it's their rule set, not campaigns setting. Daggerheart is the rules set. They will release campaign setting.
Yeah, it says the Daggerheart's by Matt Mercer and the rest of the team at Darrington Press. So the creators of Critical Role. So they're
okay. So Daggerheart is a rule set. So it's basically its own game using its own rules, and we'll have a setting, and I'm sure everything that kind of comes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
It was played at Gen Con just a fortnight ago, maybe something like that. And so far people have been talking about its non-standard mechanics, some of the things that they've done. Looks like obviously all role-playing games seem to be inspired by some other components at this point. So it's hard to say what exactly the full game looks like because their full rules aren't available yet. Just really people are reacting to some demos that were played at Gen Con and everything along those lines. But what do you guys think? What did you read? What is Daggerheart? Like what makes it so special based on what you've seen so far?
So one of the things that I think is interesting is that a lot of people assumed it was going to be a D&D clone. And they've decided not to do a D20 system. They've decided to do a 2D12 system, which one of the things that I always point out that I like about systems like that is the bell curve is better. Like you just don't fail as often.
Yeah.
Which for me, if you can't tell, as those of you who watch the live stream, I need all the help I can get on not failing as often. So like the more compressed bell curve is nice. The other thing about the D12 system, their D12 system that I found interesting is how they're going to be doing crits and then they're going to have a more narrative system of one dice is your hope and one dice is your fear. So one dice is positive, one dice is negative, and then you'll have an effect based on what that die rolls. I think like if you get a what did he say? If you get a what did he say? 12?
Well, so it's like if you roll a 9 and a 6, right?
Yeah.
So it's a 15. But if the 9 is the hope die, then you rolled a 15 with hope. If the 9 is the fear die, then you roll a 15 with fear.
Right. Is it a specific, like, it does it have to be higher, or is it a specific number? I thought it was a specific number.
Each die, you have a red die and a blue die, and the red die is the hope die and the blue die is the fear die. And you combine the rolls, but then it's either with fear or with hope, whichever one is higher.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was. That was the mechanic. And then any doubles is going to be a critical success, which is kind of neat. I think that's neat.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's obviously, I hope that you guys don't fall out of your chairs because seeing that it's produced by the Critical Role people, but it's very narrative. Like it's very collaborative between the player and the GM. And so they've dumped a lot of the baggage, like your stats, like you're not rolling for stats, right? It's the stat only exists as whatever the modifier is. You know, it's +4, +3. I don't know if they go into minuses.
They do. They have that as an example.
Okay. They, essentially are, hit points and armor are working very differently, right? So they decided not to go back to THAC0.
Always good.
Ooh, that'd be terrifying.
That would be awful, right? No. We were all glad that we went to the higher the better, not the higher the worse. You need to have a negative 27 armor to be any good at all.
But Jeff, mathematically, it's a more satisfying hit.
I've heard the argument, and
you want to screw up your bell curve even more. Throw THAC0 in there.
But I mean they are dropping some of the vestigial stuff. Really, honestly, if you go back to not to be a nerd, but the chainmail rules, right? Because that's what D&D was based on, like, which was and chainmail was essentially a war game. Like, they're dropping a lot of the vestigial extra crap that's been around for 40 years in D&D. And if you like that stuff, keep playing D&D. I'm not here to. I've actually liked our adventures and our exploration with new systems and different stuff. And some of the narrative collaborative stuff is kind of cool if you allow yourself to back away and get into it. If you want to hack and slash.
What Jeff's trying to say is he's trying not to shit on D&D, but what I will shit on D&D. One of the things that I think is cool about the stats is, like you said, they eliminated that front end of, I have an 18, which really just amounts to +3. Like, the +3 is what matters, not really the 18. And so it looks like they've stripped a lot of that bullshit away, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. And I think, I think it's trying to bridge that gap between D&D and a narrative system. Like, there's more narrative to it. There's as much narrative to it as there is the kind of crunchy combat stuff as D&D. And I think that's what's really interesting, I think, from kind of what I read, and I got most of my my information from Bob the World Builder's video. If those of you who are familiar, you should check out his channel. He has some pretty cool stuff on there. But most of what I got is from that. And I think the biggest thing is it's them being a show that produces a narrative story. They want the rules to be performative. They want the rules to be exciting. They want the rules to be narrative. And I think that's what they're trying to do, which are all things that I think D&D doesn't always do very well. So I think that's going to be good, because, like, that succeeding with hope and succeeding with fear is a totally narrative thing. Like, you hear that in Apocalypse World games. What's the Modiphius or Free League
Year Zero engine?
Year Zero engine has that. A lot of the Over the Edge has that. Like, so that's a purely narrative thing, and that allows you to have narrative control. I do think one thing that's interesting, though, is one of the things that they said is that if you succeed with the example that Bob the World Builder used, said if you succeed with fear, a narrative complication happens. And he immediately went into a mechanical complication. Like, their example is a mechanical complication where a different enemy that the person was trying to sneak past got to attack them. And I'm kind of curious as to where that line is going to be drawn between a narrative consequence and a mechanical consequence, because that's going to be a little bit weird to navigate.
Well, so I think it's one of those things, and based on what I've heard so far, it's interesting to me, because I do think, that they presented that range well. You've obviously got, on the top you have success, and on the bottom you have failure, but then to the left you have success, a good success, and then on the right you have a bad success, and then good failure, bad failure. Like, and I think that the way that they've got that matrix sets out some interesting things where it can complicate it for both the players and the game master, or whatever they call them in this particular game. And I think that makes the story more interesting, because if you fail with hope, that means that, you fucked up a little bit, but there's something, so you didn't achieve the goal that you set out to achieve, but you may have achieved something else that could be a different, as interesting type outcome.
I think you just fail. Like, I don't think you can fail with hope. I think you either succeed with hope or succeed.
No, but I'm just saying that the narrative complication that adding hope to the outcome provides could be an interesting. It just tells the story differently because
Right.
as you said before, D&D is like roll your dice.
Yeah, and you just fail.
You fucked up.
Yeah, you
Goodbye.
just fail. Yeah, like, and by the way, I hate that for everyone. Because you know who fails a lot? Me. But anyways, the point I'm kind of trying to make is they very specifically say it's a narrative outcome, which a mechanical bonus is different than like an enemy being a 2 attack. Like that's more of a mechanical bonus. Like that would be like saying, oh, you succeed with hope, that means you get advantage on your next roll. Like that's not a narrative bonus per se, that's a mechanical bonus. And I'm kind of curious if there's going to be a distinction between that in the fleshed out system.
It'll be interesting to see because like what is a narrative bonus then, right? I mean,
you learn information. You get a social advantage over someone because of information. There's a storyline complication.
Yeah. But my point is that some of those things provide you with mechanical outcomes, right? So that's like you get information that allows you to charm your
more like clues or just cinematic things, I think. So it'll be interesting. It'll just be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah. I was just scanning through the rules, and so if you have a success with hope, you get 1 hope point, and you can have up to 5. You can spend them on your turn, and you spend cool 1 to help an ally and 2 to help yourself. Yeah, and then fear means something bad happens. So, for instance, an enemy may get a bonus turn. So, like, you succeed.
Oh, the initiative order was cool too. They talked about that because they said if you succeed with hope, the initiative passes to another player, but if you succeed with fear, it passes to an enemy. And so that was kind of a cool, I think, addition too, is how they did how they're doing the initiative, and playing with the action economy a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays
out.
Yeah,
I want to see the whole rules.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It's just interesting because, like I said, it's very performative. I think that's something you can always count on them doing.
Yeah,
and it sounds like it's going to have a lot of narrative. When I listened to Bob the World Builder, I was pretty excited, actually, because it seems more like a narrative D&D, which I think is one of those things that we need. A better narrative high fantasy system.
Yeah. I'm guardedly optimistic. I like Bob's video. He's usually pretty rosy about most stuff.
That's true.
Which is great. I like looking at the positives, but sometimes I want to hear some of the sometimes I want to hear some of the things that might be problematic, and without the full rule set.
Well, one problem is Critical Role is going to have to change their logo from the D20 dice if they're going to do.
Well, I mean, they can keep it as a D20. I don't know that they not use the D20 at all for anything, even just like as a decoration.
Well, maybe. I mean, if it's anything, it's just for branding purposes, based on what we've read so far. I guess I would say that with our exploration of different games, I would be interested to play this. Although I am curious, like if you were to stack them head to head, and I think competition in games is good because I think people get more creative and try to do that stuff. And I think seeing MCDM and Critical Role kind of square off here to see who creates what kind of fantasy game. I don't really care. Like, I'm not trying to say like one should be more successful than the other. I'm just interested to see how they plumb the depths of their imagination to create probably 2 different systems that try to get to this end result of creating a high fantasy game that hits us in that nostalgia of what we played from D&D for so long.
Well, the thing is so here's my current opinions about D&D. If you want to play a D&D game, play D&D, because that's where you're going to get the best D&D game. If you want to play a good high fantasy game, you should pick a different system. Not even Pathfinder, because Pathfinder is basically really D&D. But there are other high fantasy systems that you can play that I think are probably better for different stories.
Yeah. Have we gotten an update on MCDM lately?
Yeah, I hadn't seen anything.
I hadn't either. That's why I asked.
I've been playing too much Baldur's Gate to pay attention to all the other news. I mean, I'm running two adventures.
Child in Baldur's Gate. Mike has no time even for his wife. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
He is running 2 different games though, too.
Running 2 games, playing Baldur's Gate, thinking about this podcast stuff. I mean,
it's true.
I'm keeping myself busy.
And he has a child,
and I have a baby. I take care of full time. Yeah, he's a good baby. Don't get me started. So Daggerheart, I think we'll stay loosely optimistic. Maybe what we can do is we'll reach out to Darrington Press and say if they want to, like 10 extra views, they can let us have an advanced copy and we'll play it.
We would like to play your game on our podcast.
Yeah, well, I'll ask.
You should.
We're not doing this for money. I'm part of the marketing team.
We could get you at least 5 additional people.
Yeah, 5 views.
3 of them are the players.
Yeah,
or us.
Something like that. Who cares? Okay. So then with that, I mean, in terms of like our last thing, I think we could probably close it out on. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention about Daggerheart before we move on to the next one?
No, there's a lot to be hopeful for. I do want to mention the card system, where
that's right.
On your character sheet you've got like was it heritage or ancestry? I'm getting that mixed up. Your foundation.
It's safe as long as you don't say race.
And in the class, there's different things, where essentially you have the rules because they want the game to feel rules light for the players. Like the information that they need will be in front of them and not having to always grab a big thick book and be flipping pages going, well, I know that was in here somewhere. It'll be interesting to see how the card thing's incorporated. Like I want to see the form factor that it's sold in. Like, is it the book and then additional add-on cards with some classes and some stuff? Is it all coming as part of a box set? Brent's like, whatever maximizes retail value. And you may 100% be right. I don't know, but I am interested to see how the card thing combines because I mean I've seen pictures and I get an idea, but without seeing like the full character sheet and that kind of stuff.
Well, I did look on comicbook.com and they had a full looking character sheet, so you could actually see some of the cards. And
they had the
character sheet on it.
So, and the reason I say that is because really, if they wanted to do, the reason I say that this is definitely an add-on sale for them is because they could just make character sheets where you could copy and paste that stuff into them and then print them. So 100% the cards are going to be an add-on sale, both race, class, and probably background cards. And do I think it's a smart business decision? Yeah, I do. Do I think if I really like the game, would I probably buy them? Yes, I probably would. But like 100%, I think it's a vague cash grab, smart idea.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, but here's the deal. I think if I'm okay with it as long as the art and the quality of them is good. Like if they have good art, like that's the one thing that always attracted me to Magic the Gathering cards, even though I stopped playing years and years ago, is that some of the art that they had over the years is pretty good.
Oh, they've had some super talented people.
And so I haven't purchased those cards myself. And but I say that, it's always interesting to see some of the newest art that had come out because I had some friends that played a lot of Magic the Gathering and stuff.
The art of a game is like one of the things that will make me buy it almost immediately, as per my backing of Eat the Reich recently. So
yeah. You're very transparent, Brent.
I thought that was just for the tagline. Was
the tagline is also excellent, but the art is close.
Okay. Just
the art is what caught my eye. The tagline is really what sold it for me.
Fair enough.
He didn't have to go very far into the Kickstarter.
No, it was like this far down, and I was like, where do I give them my money? Where do I give them my money?
How much money can I give them? What do I get?
Please hush and take my money.
I am disappointed that the highest level of backer, that I'm not going to say how much it was sold out, because, man, I would have been sorely tempted.
No, now I need to look.
Because I am a sucker for stuff like that.
Sucker for vampires draining the blood of Hitler? Was that what you
yes, that's one of them. But I think the highest tier was you get an ammo box with a bunch of like Like you get like badges and like stuff from the vampires that are in the game, and like I am a sucker for that stuff. Like I would have bought the if I could have gotten a copy, I would have bought the Borderlands like loot chest edition, but those were gone by the time I got them because I am a sucker for that stuff.
Yeah. I'm never, the weird part is I've never really been a collector's edition kind of physical rewards guy because I always lose that stuff. Like, but I can see the allure of it, right? Because some of that stuff is pretty sweet.
Oh, I love stupid swag stuff. And for role-playing games, it's even better because I would like use it as props during a game.
That's fair. So all right. So I guess just as we round out the episode end, do we want to talk a little bit about a prologue session, kind of our initial thoughts and
sure,
like how we do that? So
yeah, we told them we would. So
what's that?
We told them we would, so we have to. Let's not be breaking promises now.
Well, I mean, sure, okay. So first of all, those of you that have watched our previous couple of episodes and stuff like that have known that we started into the world of Fabula Ultima. Or the game of Fabula Ultima and the world of Ur. Now, the idea is that, we were trying this game and it was very, very heavily inspired by Japanese tabletop RPGs. Japanese. It was inspired by Japanese RPGs, and they translated that feeling into a tabletop RPG that was it's actually has shown quite a bit of promise so far. It is a little bit heavier on the narrative side of gaming, but it is epic fantasy. It is unique because each gaming group is going to kind of create a different world in which they engage with. But one of the ways that they start the session is with what's called a prologue session. Now, I don't think they're the first people to do that, but I'm actually thinking my own personal self have liked the idea of a prologue session to kind of start all my new games, just because it helps, I think, both you, the player, and me, the DM, understand like what you're going for. So what is a prologue session? Now, we played a prologue session together where you guys, one of you had the spotlight and the other one had basically a seat in the audience or the peanut gallery. Now, the idea is though I think both are fine. Although, as I was reading and seeing what other people had kind of experienced in terms of prologue sessions, some people have private prologue sessions where it's just a one-on-one session with the game master and stuff like that. I didn't really feel like that is a necessary thing. And I think in order for people to kind of all gain a benefit for how they perceive your character, being in the peanut gallery is not a bad idea. What do you guys think? Do you think do you prefer the private, or do you prefer to have kind of one or the other?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, the one caveat I have is anytime you have players at the table or on the call who are not actively participating, it is easy at times for them to lose focus. Mm-hmm. All right. It just happens. I liked being there and getting to hear some of Brent's thoughts on his character and how his character would respond to stuff. But I'm not going to lie and say that I paid 100% attention 100% of the time when I wasn't the one who was live. And so I think you can miss stuff. And so I think it makes it harder on the GM that way, that you have to try to keep things really tight to make sure that stuff is moving along and not dragging. Because I think there's a risk, especially like if we would have had, say, 6 people there, right? Mm-hmm. And at any time, you've got 1 actively engaged and 5 perhaps actively disengaging after 25 minutes because things just wound up going longer than we thought, which could happen, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's a risk for, kind of losing the group, because we've all done it. I try not to do a ton of extra stuff, right? While we're doing stuff, but every once in a while I'm part of the problem.
No, I agree that it is kind of easy to lose focus. But one of the things that I think is okay with, there's a couple things that I like about it. One, it prepares a player to be kind of the interactive audience for when somebody has a spotlight. And I think that's good because I think one of the things with role-playing games that's interesting is when you're and I started to think about this much later in a GM, is like you're performing for entertaining not just the person that's playing, but the other people. So you're trying to like make them the audience. And I think that's sort of like prologue. And if you get good at it, like you can make them really feel like an audience like the beginning of the movie. And I think you're starting to prep them for that is one thing. But I also think them not paying attention is kind of okay 100%, because then you avoid some of that meta knowledge that some players may sneak into a game. So if they drift off a little bit, it's okay, because technically they shouldn't know that information anyways. But so I think those are the strengths of it. If we had more players, it would be hard. They have to be shorter and tighter. Like we did almost an hour a piece.
It was a good 45 minutes, I think,
and that would be way too much with a bigger party. Like I would say even 3 people an hour.
Well, yeah. For the way we meet, we can't meet for 5 hours,
right?
As a group.
And I don't think a lot of role playing groups do that anymore. So if you have 4 or 5 players, like you should probably your vignettes or prologues should be like 15 minutes, and they should be tight. Just like description, actions, like kind of an idea of what your character is, and then move to the next person.
Yeah, because it's so, and I think in a few comments there is that, first of all, I kind of liked, and I'm kind of leaning towards the everybody being there, but I can understand based on time constraints and everything like that, where that may not be your best option. But first of all, the meta knowledge. I liked how the prologue went, especially in a game like Fabula Ultima, where everyone kind of like sat as the peanut gallery, because it allowed you to experience more places and kind of breathe a little bit more life into the world, and various different, because you guys were in 2 different parts of the world. You kind of had 2 different experiences. Brent obviously getting sky pirated, and Jeff having, his daily life in the tenement upset by, a thug, a loan shark's thug. So, so you get kind of a little bit of a different feel for the world. But I think as the DM, it was nice because then people felt the world, but they didn't have to have the world re-explained to them each time.
Sure.
So that, like, if we did that, and then all of a sudden you guys ended up in the tech city of
Zepro.
Brent, not having any context, would just be like, okay, now give me the description, and I might have to re-describe the atmosphere, the feeling, everything like that about Zepro. More so than I would if he was there for the prologue. And I think that it's interesting too, because it allows, even though it allows a little bit of metagaming, I've never been the guy that's been like, no metagaming 100%, metagaming sneaks in here and there. And I think that the kind of metagaming you get from a prologue story is fine, because it allows you to kind of like understand the character a lot better. Like why, like I don't think everyone's going to create murder hobos. But at least you understand why the character acts the way they do, especially if they're consistently acting that way from the start, and not just being contrarians later in life and all that kind of stuff.
Right. I think more what I mean by meta knowledge is if you have a character that maybe has a secret that you don't want the players to know, there are players that may bring it up, and
that's fair.
You might not know how that goes in character. That sort of thing, where that meta knowledge just spills over, either on accident or on purpose. I mean, I've seen people absolutely do it on purpose to make gaming groups go sideways a little bit. But that's that, and you can talk about bad players and all that stuff, but like I have seen meta knowledge be used in ways that it shouldn't be used. And that's more what I mean by that, is that there's sometimes character knowledge that gets used intentionally or unintentionally. Like people may forget too that they don't actually know that in character. And that can cause problems. So sometimes them not paying attention is okay, because they don't necessarily have those. And if it is a problem, and it's one of those things where it's like, if you have a character that has a secret, maybe that's an argument for doing an alone one. But I think it's good to do it as a group.
Yeah. No, and that's a consideration I wasn't exactly expecting, because I mean, it is a time for you to flesh out your backstory and stuff like that. And there probably would be a situation in which a backstory, you might want to keep part of your backstory secret, because like your dad killed the prince and you're on the lam, and then somebody meets you and they're like, you're the guys whose dad killed the prince, right?
Yeah, you're the guy that we're after. Oh
yeah, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Awkward. I'm out of here. So, but I think that the idea about prologue sessions is that I feel for the amount of time that they take, because they're not designed, they shouldn't be too long. I mean, obviously you could, like it with it, depending on your group and all that stuff, if you wanted to do them privately, even you could run, 4 2-hour sessions, and I think that would give people an immense amount of background on their creator, and it would give you the DM a great understanding of what they expected to bring to the table. And usually the prologue, of course, happens, and then you get to that starting point. So then they all meet in the throne room at the king's castle or whatever the fuck. But I guess what's weird to me though is that, like, I don't know why it took so long for me to find out about this, honestly. With as many new games and stuff that we start, like, I like the idea of it quite considerably.
Well, a lot of games just don't call for it because they want you to start. They want to throw you, right into the, especially pre-canned adventures, right?
Yeah.
Like they're almost all some version of you meet on the road, you meet in a bar, you meet at the stable, you meet at the Lord's Keep, because you've all responded to this, Monster Hunter call out, like whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's more of a GM technique than it is a game thing. Like I know that Fabula Ultima specifically calls it out as something you should do, but like it's more of a technique as a GM that if you have GM'd a lot, or if it's a technique that you've used before and enjoyed, you kind of work in there. So I think that's really what he shared, is he shared a GM's technique more than a Fabula Ultima specific thing.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing I can say is kind of a drawback about it is, and obviously it's still new to me, so I'm only seeing, I see more of the glitter than the other stuff. But the idea is that as a GM, you get to prepare a lot for this, because you have to tell up to as many players separate stories.
Yeah.
and it doesn't seem like much, because they're not supposed to be like hugely impactful scenes that you create for this type of thing, but creating something for each person that feels unique and fun and engaging for them, and the NPCs that they may encounter, and the places that they may visit. You have to be responsible for doing that for as many players as you're introducing. And the fact that I'm doing another Fabula Ultima run through with a different group that includes these two guys, but some other players from our home group, that means that's going to be larger because there's going to be 4 of them. But I'm already kind of a little bit nervous about the prologue, because it's just, there's going to be four prologues that we have to tackle on that one.
Yeah. And one other thing about that that I would say is that's when they need to be like shorter.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you don't like role playing, don't worry about the prologue. Not important.
Yeah. I would say if you don't like role playing, you probably shouldn't play Fabula Ultima, to be frank. It's more of a narrative game than a crunch game, in my opinion.
Get out your Warhammer Fantasy models and play a different game,
or play D&D
if you want. We're not going to recommend D&D. Maybe Brent is.
Well, I'm recommending if that's style of game that you want. Fabula Ultima.
If that's the kind of game you want. It's really good at what it does.
Fabula Ultima is not that game, though. I will say that.
I'm interested to see where Fabula Ultima takes us.
It's a narrative game, very much in the new school kind of narrative trad game. It's a trad game, but it's very much trying to be more narrative than most trad games.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think honestly, it's going to be it's going to be neat, and I think that the prologue thing gives me a good foundation. Like, I have a really good idea as to how your characters act and all that stuff, and even just reflecting on it, because I like to kind of dissect my actions and all that kind of stuff. Already, Brent, I figured out a way to make your scene more dynamic and exciting if I were to try to do something like that again, just because of how I approached it. I kind of made it a little bit vanilla and a little bland, and I didn't realize that till after I ran it. But I think that there's
besides me remembering my rules.
Well, aside from you remembering your rules and all that stuff, but like as a swarm opponent, I really just made them kind of a nebulous blob, and it didn't really seem to have any impact. When in fact, I could have just had like you knocking, for every one of those hits you were getting, you were knocking the pirates out, or
you could have had one pirate as a pirate as a hit point.
Yeah. Well, and even if because in this case the swarm just shares the same stat block, but you could still show your progress through it rather than having 4 pirates. One attacks you, you knock it in the head with a spear, he goes off to the side and gets KO'd. Another one attacks you, you counterattack, trip him, make it more dynamic. And I just was thinking about that afterwards, and I was like, I was probably nervous because I was live streaming. I didn't even think about that. I was like, you swing, you miss.
Well, I forgot one of my main rules, so that would have fixed like half my problem during the adventure. So whatever.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, man?
would have hit a lot more frequently if I was remembering to add the actual bonus that I paid for. So
it's true. It's true. We can talk about remembering your characters in a different session. But prologues, I prefer them now. I'm going to try to run them no matter what game that I do, just to kind of give a chance to feel out the system, feel out the characters, feel out the adventure. And I think you can use prologues as a great way to introduce a lot of things about your game to each of the characters, because that's how it could be received. Sure. So like you can introduce like main antagonists, you can introduce rivals and stuff like that for the actual PCs. So if you want to have, try to establish some things, that bonds and all that, I think it's a lot of fun.
One thing I would say, and I people, GMs out there, I would encourage you is, and this is back to that that meta knowledge, is if you are going to introduce some sort of villain or something, and you're trying to, make something a secret or something like that, and you introduce it, and you don't want the characters to know it, don't put it in your prologue, because that meta knowledge will absolutely get brought up if it's not about you can trust the players to probably respect meta knowledge about players, but if you make meta knowledge about an NPC public knowledge, you're going to get kicked in the face with it at some point. 100%.
That's true.
100%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that won't even do it intentionally.
Yeah. Well, that's why you don't reveal the main antagonist weakness during the prologue scene, or a DM scene. And he stands in front of the light that he has to bathe in front of every other day.
Or just like, what I'm saying is if like you have a protagonist that you want to use, and like there's like, if you don't want the players to go, oh, there's the bad guy. Like for example, I'll use the Pathfinder game we were playing as an example. Like if you had done a vignette or prologue about the Chancellor or whatever the hell he was called, as he was secretly dealing with
Geb.
Geb, the bad state, like we would have went hard. Like there wouldn't have been any question. It would have been like, we're 100% breaking into his house, murdering his servants, and burning his house down. Like
there's no talk of cideries in this game.
Right. But your players, when you're like, well, you guys don't know that he's actually a bad guy. And it's like, the fuck we don't. Like at that point, like your players will just go hard. Like it'll just be, well, you're not really supposed to know that.
Well,
but we do know that, so I'm just gonna
here's some collateral damage.
Yeah, I'm just gonna happen to break into his house and accidentally set it on fire. Yeah.
Well, that's me hoping that you guys are better players than that. No, but I think the cool thing about the DM scenes is that if you wanted to use something like that, you could make it more ambiguous. Obviously, and then you could make it, you could more cement the ambiguity within them, because now they've seen a scene that they have playing in their mind, and they go, maybe he is. I mean,
oh no, players won't do that. If you're thinking, and that's what I'm saying, like you need to be careful of. If you try and make something ambiguous and he's innocent, the players will still crush his life. And then maybe feel guilty about it. Like, and
maybe that's what I was hoping for, so I could scatter you to the 4 winds.
And that's fine. I'm just saying for less experienced DMs out there, or people trying to build a game, like if you do a prologue and you hint that a character is, because as a player you get so little information, if you throw a hint out there, and whether you realize it or not, there's a story element that they can go after, your players will go after it hard. Like world crushing hard.
Yeah.
That's how campaigns get derailed sometimes. That's how, how are you into getting married to this guy? Well, not really. All right, well, we're gonna capture you and take you off into the countryside. And then the GM's like, that wasn't what this campaign was about.
It's fair. It's fair. So, okay. Well, then I think that's enough about prologuing and warning people about metagaming, Brent.
A little bit of warning that from a GM that's tried some of this stuff and had it go horribly, horribly awry. Well, you don't know he's that guy. Yeah, we do. No, you don't. Yeah, we do. Okay.
We do know he's that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but okay.
Well, we're pretty sure.
They're hints. He just seems like the guy.
He seems like the type. Yeah, exactly.
So, all righty. Well, then I think that's our 3 topics. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to mention about prologuing or
nothing about loggers?
That's not a word. No.
Nothing about loggers. No.
I feel like if I submit that to Merriam-Webster, I'm gonna probably get credit for it.
Man, you
can try.
You're gonna contact Merriam-Webster and Critical Role in the same week. I say go.
Wow.
For it.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, like, what do I just tweet them and say prologuing, the act of running a prologue while drinking,
while making up words.
I feel like I'd probably get more acceptance over at Urban Dictionary, but whatever.
100%. I think Urban Dictionary is a Wikipedia page. I think you just submit prologuing on Urban Dictionary. So maybe that's
just settle on a spelling and go to Urban Dictionary.
Yeah,
and then you can feel accomplished.
All right. Well then, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Jeff, do you want to tell people how they can get a hold of us?
Yeah, if you have any comments about tonight's episode, please leave a comment, like and subscribe. Those help us out. If you want to get a hold of us on X, YouTube, Facebook, or Threads, it's at Rollwise with no spaces. If you want to email us, it's rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, everybody, thank you for joining us. We always appreciate your patronage. We don't have a Patreon yet, but patronage as in, watching the show. Thank you, everybody. And as always, roll well and roll wise and be safe out there.
See ya.